you connect to those doctors and find one that fits just right for you. Just right. So, feel free. I'm typically located out of this office, but sometimes I am out in the field. Call the number at the top of our calendars. They'll get you to me, or they'll take your name and number and I'll give you a call back. Yes, calendar's right there. Other than that, if you could please make sure that you have your cell phones either turned off or on silent. The restroom is right across the way. It is a one-person restroom, so if it's locked, that means it's currently in use. There are a couple more downstairs. Other than that, I want to be respectful of your time and get everything started. So Amanda Barton, I'm handing it off to you.
Okay. Thank you. So appreciate you guys being here so much for today's presentation. A couple of little items that I wanted to bring to your attention was in your bags you have several goodie items. One of those is the Seniors Blue Book. And I think a lot of you have been at these presentations enough to know my joke about how many of you are familiar with the Seniors Blue Book and then how many actually know how to use it. Because it is a packed full resource guide with a lot of information that most people don't look at until they have a crisis on their hands. So my goal in life is to make sure you know how to use that book, so when something happens to you, you can quickly find the resources that you're looking for, or let you be proactive and get to know the resources in the guide, because they're not all for emergency situations. Some of those are just like today's topic, for education, for you to know what resources are out there for you and know how to use them. So that book is in there for you. If you already have one, that's fantastic. Take it to a friend or a neighbor. I'm perfectly fine with that. I have plenty of them. So the other is there's 2 flyers in there for events that are coming up in September here in Cape Coral. And then I also placed one on your desk with the notes page from today that's of a topic that's coming up right here in Cape Coral on the 27th of this month. So that's over at Lake Kennedy Senior Center, and we'd love to have you for that topic as well. So the notes pages look like this. One side has everyone's beautiful mug shot. The other side has their contact information up in the corner. If you're anything like me, you're going to remember a question later and not remember their name, but you'll remember what they look like, right? So that's the purpose of today's note sheets. So if you can take your notes on this page, it will come in handy later for you, okay? So we're going to get started with introductions, and then also just to let you know, again, I think a lot of you have been at these presentations. Our goal is to have you ask the questions, not me. I do have some pre-designed icebreaker questions in my back pocket. If you guys don't have any questions, these are ones that I think that you should be asking, put it that way. But we do want to hear from you. We prefer to hear from you. So please do me the favor, if you would, of asking a question, because your neighbor may be too shy to ask that question. And there are no dumb questions here. They're all good questions. So please don't be shy. All right, we're going to start off with Christine, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then just go down the line.
My name is Christine Eisenhower. I am president of Eisenhower Senior Services. We assist folks in applying for Medicaid benefits, those who need long-term care, whether it be at home or in assisted living or in a skilled nursing facility.
Speaking of.
My name is Allie Garces. I am the hospital liaison and marketing director for Fort Myers Rehabilitation and Nursing Center. We are a skilled nursing facility. We offer rehabilitation services, physical therapy, occupational speech therapy, and we also offer long-term care and hospice care.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea with Informed Choice. We're a Medicare insurance agency. We're independent, so we're able to show all the options that are available. And the big thing about our agency is that we're non-commissioned, so everything that we do is no cost, no obligations, and we can show you all the options that are available versus just 1 or 2 carriers.
Hello, my name is Heidi Brown, and I'm an attorney with Osterhout & McKinney. We're an elder law firm, and we have offices in Fort Myers and Naples. Our office handles estate planning, Medicaid, VA planning, also probate and guardianship.
Fantastic, thank you so much. All right, so our first icebreaker question, I'm gonna start off with Christine. Can you tell us some of the qualifications that, make you eligible for Medicaid and how you can help guide someone through that process?
Okay, so all of the long-term care type of Medicaid programs have the same income and asset limitations. If you are a single individual, the exempt assets are a home up to a value of $585,000, a vehicle of any value, a second vehicle as long as it's 7 years old or older, IRAs as long as you have your required minimum distribution coming out. They count that on the income side rather than as an asset. You are also allowed to have irrevocable burial arrangements of any value. Let's see, am I missing anything? Oh, income producing property as long as it is producing fair market value income counts as income rather than an asset. And then if you are a married individual and only one of the spouses needs Medicaid, you are allowed to have all of those items. There is no limitation to the homestead value though. And then they're also allowed to have an additional $126,000. Oh, and the single person is $2,000 is with the asset limit as far as banking goes, liquid assets.
There's a lot of, yes ma'am, go ahead.
Or you explained what are not considered assets, or what are considered assets.
Well, yes, those are considered non-countable assets, okay?
So what would be a countable asset?
Would be bank accounts, investments.
Yeah, that's all considered, those are countable assets, but they are assets that you are allowed to have and still be eligible for Medicaid benefits. So they are all assets, but you are allowed to retain them and still be on Medicaid for the long-term care.
Or say the investments of them?
Say that again?
Regardless of the dollar amount that's in those investments.
Well, with those limitations that I have just mentioned.
Okay.
And if you are outside of those limitations, that's where the elder
That's
law
where the next
attorneys
question
come
will
in
come
and
in.
she's gonna
Before we
go
move
into more
on, though,
details.
Go ahead.
You said that you could only have $2,000 cash is what you're saying, basically. But what if you have no other assets?
No other assets
at
than
all?
the cash or than your bank account? You qualify.
Yeah, makes the qualification
That's what I
process a
wondered.
lot easier.
Oh, sure, yeah.
If you have no other assets and maybe your bank account says it's $2,300, what happens?
Oh, okay, so you really don't have much to spend down. They do allow you to spend that extra $300, on expenses or,
In that case, groceries even.
Thank you.
Okay, dumb question.
No.
No.
Dumb question, no, this is there like an age limit? Because I really don't know the difference between Medicare and Medicaid,
And
so
that-
if you
yeah.
could just explain that.
Yeah. Well, Medicaid is for those who are 65 and older
Okay.
or disabled for the long-term care
Okay.
programs. You have to be
long-term care.
disabled, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep, and the income limit, I didn't even get into that, for an individual is $2,313 per month for the long-term care programs. That's gross, they count gross, prior to deducting Medicare premiums, taxes, other health insurance premiums, union dues.
There are Medicaid programs too that are not associated with long-term care. So, and then Andrea's gonna get into Medicare. So we'll learn more about that. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just repeating yourself, just to be clear, 2,000 limit in a savings account for a single person?
In a checking, savings, any banking,
that you can get your
Mhm.
hands on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great questions. Yes, ma'am.
I've got your life insurance policy, did I take that away?
If you have cash value in your life insurance, you are allowed to retain up to $2,500 for burial purposes. If your burial arrangements have been made irrevocable, then you are also allowed an additional up to $2,500 set aside, whether it be in life insurance cash value or in a CD or savings account, whatever it is, you're allowed to have an additional $2,500 as long as it's earmarked for burial purposes. Mhm.
Sorry, I'm just reading Okay.
I have another question about Medicaid. I have a son who's in assisted living, and he's in there because, and being paid for because his mother and father took out an insurance policy. However, he's gonna run out one of these days. What happens then?
If he's in an assisted living facility that accepts Medicaid, then there is a program for that. It's a Medicaid waiver program for assisted living, and there are limitations to that program. There's a waiting list to begin with that's managed by Area Agency on Aging, and then when a person's name comes up on the wait list, the managed care program through Medicaid will kick in only up to about $1,100 or $1,200 a month. There is a new managed care plan, that might pay a little bit more than that, but, it depends on the facility that he's in and which managed care they take.
I want to get more information on that.
Well, which facility?
Which
is he in?
facility is it?
He's in Calusa Harbor.
Okay.
Okay.
I assume they donate.
They do
They
actually.
do.
Yeah, Calusa Harbor in their assisted living and in their long-term care facility, they do accept Medicaid.
And we're a really great place to find that information.
The seniors do.
Yeah, in the grids back in the Seniors Blue Book, there's a bubble for places that take Medicaid. And you're right, they are far and few between, so it's good to do that research ahead of time, and it's also good that he is where he is. Because I think the residents that are already there, if that would help, So great question. Any others? All right. So I think what we'll do is just jump down to Heidi, and we'll talk about if you're close to being qualified for Medicaid, what are some of the things that people can do with your assistance to make sure they don't, and keyword with her assistance, because you want to make sure you do it right, or you will disqualify yourself. So tell us a little bit about that, Heidi.
So if we have a single person and they are just a little bit over the asset limit by about less than 10,000 or so, one of the easiest things to do is to just spend down on goods and services for them. So, for example, maybe the person needs clothing, maybe they need furniture, maybe they have credit cards that they could pay off, or if they have a mortgage, they could pay that down. But it's gotta be something for that person that's getting ready to apply for Medicaid or their spouse. It cannot be for, a gift to a friend or to some other type of relative. Now, it could be if they still have a minor child at home that they're responsible for, you can definitely buy a gift for them. But if they only have adult children that are out of the house, that are on their own, then no, you can't gift to your children. If they have a little bit more money than that, then one of the neat things that they can do is what's called a personal services contract. And that's where somebody agrees to be their caregiver and they in return get a payment. Usually it's a lump sum payment. So let's say I have $20,000 to shelter, and I have somebody who wants to apply for Medicaid, and let's say their adult daughter has been very close to them and has been running errands for them and has been taking them to the doctor. I can write out a contract where the applicant will be the patient and the adult daughter will be the caregiver, and we can legally have a transfer of that $20,000. Now, that money will be considered income to the daughter, and she needs to report it on her taxes. And these personal services contracts are also based upon your life expectancy. So somebody who's in their 60s or 70s can put away a lot more money through this than somebody who's in their 90s. Another thing that we can do in Florida, you can't necessarily do this in other states, but, and that's something else to point out, Medicaid can be very state specific. Even though it's a joint federal and state program, a lot of the rules and some of the types of Medicaid programs that exist vary from state to state. So you may have a friend who lives up north in New York or Ohio that is doing something completely different in order to get qualified for Medicaid. So in Florida, another thing we can do is we know that the person is over 65 and they have a lot of expenses that Medicaid's not going to cover, we can do what's called a pooled trust. And a pooled trust is just a trust for disabled and elderly disabled people who all pool their money together. Each person has a sub-account, and the money in that sub-account can be used to pay for goods or expenses. So let's say somebody is going into an assisted living facility and Medicaid only pays about $1,100 or $1,200. We could put in their extra $20,000 into the pooled trust, and it could pay for the difference between what Medicaid pays and the true rate for that room. And then finally, if somebody has a lot of money, maybe let's say $100,000 or so, we might suggest rental property if it's done properly. And the reason why I say rental property is because the underlying asset does not count towards that $2,000 that they can have. Now the rent will count as income, but at least we're able to protect that underlying asset level. So let's say we have a person who's in their 80s and they have 4 children and they have scrimped and saved their entire life, and they want to be able to leave something to their 4 children, and they're going on nursing home Medicaid, and they can purchase a rental real estate. They have to purchase it for fair market value, and then they can rent it out at fair market rent. And that underlying asset, although we have to report it to the state, it doesn't count towards the $2,000 they're allowed to have.
Makes sense? Questions?
Yes, if an individual is paying for a private long-term care policy, paying premiums, how would that affect Medicaid eligibility?
So if somebody has a long-term care insurance, they have to put in a claim against their policy before they can apply for Medicaid. And it is possible to have a policy paying out on a claim and still get on Medicaid. So for example, let's say somebody's in a nursing home that costs $10,000, but their long-term care plan only pays about $100 per day. That's what, $3,000 a month? And if their income isn't $7,000 a month, they're gonna have a hard time paying for that room. So depending upon how that long-term care policy is written, it might end up being counted as income, but that's okay. They can still apply for Medicaid. And in fact, it's a requirement that they put in a claim for the long-term care policy, because Medicaid wants to be the payer of last resort. So if somebody could be eligible for their long-term care plan policy, they have to put in a claim. Now, if they get denied, that's a different story, but they have to at least get it started.
Any others? I'm surprised, usually Heidi gets them all done. Okay, well, we'll move over to Ally, because she kind of covers with the skilled and the rehabilitation, it's a double whammy. So she can educate us on really the differences between Medicaid and Medicare when it comes to your eligibility in a rehabilitation or a skilled situation. So why don't we start with the skilled situation? How do you handle someone coming in on a long-term stay for Medicaid? And maybe tell them the differences between a long and a short-term stay.
Okay, so we're going to start with the short-term stay,
Okay.
and then with the long-term. That's usually kind of how it works in most cases.
Sure.
So when a person that has Medicare gets sick, you go to the hospital, and for Medicare to pay for a skilled nursing facility, you need to be in the hospital for 3 nights inpatient stay. Sometimes just because you're in there for 3 nights doesn't necessarily mean they were inpatient stay. So if you have that qualifying stay, then Medicare says, okay, well, we'll pay for skilled nursing for you to get a little bit of rehab. So you come to our facility and you start getting physical, occupational speech therapy, whatever it is that you require. And if you have up to 100 days to use in our facility per Medicare. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to use 100 days. So the more you keep improving, then you keep getting days authorized by Medicare. Once you reach your plateau, you get a 3-day cut notice saying you're doing well, time to go home, and then that's when we start the discharge planning. Now, most people are able to go home with home health services. Those who are not able to, then we can do a few things. If you're well enough to go to an assisted living facility, then we'll help you with that. We can transition to an assisted living facility. If you need a Medicaid application for an assisted living facility, then depending on your assets, that's when you go to over here, or we can also help with that process in the facility. And so once you get approved for the Medicaid, then you transition to the assisted living facility. Now, what happens if you're not well enough to go to an assisted living facility? Then that's when you transition to our long-term care unit. And with the long-term care unit, we can also assist with the Medicaid process. And once you transition from the short-term, the rehab side of the facility to the long-term side of the facility, then and Medicaid kicks in. The guidelines for Medicaid in a skilled nursing facility is all of the income minus $135? $130. $130 goes to you. The rest of the income plus what Medicaid pays goes to the facility. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And is there an expectation of the family to make up the difference, or is it just whatever their income is?
It's just whatever the income is, and then you get to keep that $130 if you want to
Get your hair done.
personal, get your hair done. We do have a beautician in the facility, so that's when you get that. But basically, the guideline is because we provide everything for the patient, the care, the meals, the activities, so there's no real expense to you all. And then the 130 is just for anything personal that you require.
So let's say you're in a facility and at home, you only have 130 a month, how much would your utilities be?
It's not if you're at home. This is if you're being admitted to.
If you're in a facility, but still at home you have utilities that are
This is
have
if
taken
you're
on.
there long-term, if you're gonna be a resident at that
Oh, okay.
facility, yeah,
So-
it's,
That's the problem
It-
with the
right.
Medicaid is that they allow you to own this home, you know, up to a value of 585,000, but they don't allow you to keep any of your regular monthly income to pay the expenses at that home, unless it's rented out. So if you find a renter for the home, then the rental income becomes income and has to be paid to the facility, but only the net. So if you rent it out for $1,500 a month and it costs you $700 a month to run it, then that's $800 extra income that you have coming in that goes to the nursing home. So, but at least the house gets paid for and the asset is still there
So technically, you could have a friend move in.
and pay the expenses.
Right.
just make sure you do it the legal way, so it doesn't affect your Medicaid
Yeah.
status.
Or
Yeah, you definitely wanna talk to
Talk to
an
an
elder
elder.
law.
Or
because-
another thing that we can do is the pooled trust. So if somebody had, you know, a couple of $20,000, we would put it in the pooled trust, and the pooled trust can pay the utilities, the electric, the cable, the lawn maintenance, the HOA fees, the property insurance, and all the other fees that go with owning a home. Now, if we have a married couple, there is a way that we can get the income from the Medicaid patient who's in a nursing home, diverted back to the spouse that still lives at home. And there's two ways to do it. We can either have the Department of Children and Families try to figure it out, and they look at just housing costs, or we can go to court and call it as well if $100 for a home, we can sometimes do.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Mhm. That the patient can't.
Yeah. Feel better.
In a facility, oftentimes the spouse or the family has to have the
Looking to go to
we think
Assisted living facility.
Medicare cover a nursing that level of and feeding. Part of the Medicare
Curious
though
how-
is that level.
Still assisted living.
Gone.
she's been
For us,
If you want, I can get her.
confusing.
Insurance side of correct. So
Too, as well explained.
So I
Okay, he was really back. It comes to me.
With Medicaid, you have an annual review. And you get dropped. Are 50.
This is,
So he knows apply from back to the hospital. Well, that all came to us. So in a process, nurse something, I think it's safety net access.
well, $15,000 and
filing for bankruptcy.
Does your son have Medicare or is just Medicaid?
Well, Memorial. Do that anymore.
Oh.
Are they gonna stay overnight? There 2 weeks. Not at them.
ACO.
Yeah.
So if
Keep going up.
You're a good mom too.
Here, I normally it's 3 months prior to your birth. Quarterly. Covers medical. You now of the bills for medical. It's $13.64. Is taking care of you for correct. Route. So as my
Medicare. Anything to go in? You can go right in.
When original Medicare, but
Okay, so you right there.
an effective
an election, there's area. Will be an election. That gives you an election. I'll try to get
getting social. 3 months prior to your birthday, I will automatically.
Oh, sorry.
To add on to the pay.
7-month window, yours in January, so and excuse me, your letters and numbers January 1st. Incredible coverage. I want you have from 7-month window.
At that, how low did they have?
Percent. And you have to will tell the prescription plan.
insurance, there's, I think, 2 levels on the low income. Your generic brand.
Do you have the chart?
77.
Include no longer.
Is that like
100 and
Full time.
I'm still.
Medicare because say as time is insurance and then retired, insurance, or excuse in the state to I'm saying this is your penalty. That letter again.
Excuse me, folks, I have to leave.
but you said thing I'm missing, an amount comes out of my district. I'm wondering my medications. So automatically had RP United Health.
Okay. Do you
Is that
are you paying a premium?
no,
Then that is a Medicare.
Medicare,
That's either an HMO.
an HMO.
Yep. Care Advantage, and you with that.
I didn't have pro before that. Why didn't I just go with
Since she has Part D with it.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time.
I asked the same, there is a Part B of that. Right.
Yeah. Your ARP in it.
I got that because I need
rather not, I'd rather just keep that, but they.
It have showed you this. It sounds like they didn't, just showed you the Medicare Advantages.
You're gonna have to pick another. Luckily, my was low enough that with, oh, I don't pay anything extra. The PPO, then I would. And so, what difference between D, which covers your medication, and going an advantage?
Your hospital with the same pay or
There's none.
or not, for your advantage, or you're on a network, so you have to say whoever accepts ARP. Now on original Medicare, as long as they original Medicare, they might have wanted due to the Advantage plan and as long as work, but if you're not happy with that, then you want to look at going back to original Medicare, picking up a standalone drug coverage.
What's
The cost of plans will have each month, but into Medicare to figure out which cover all of them together the remaining of the year or the whole.
Physician, my left lead, and she said to my, you are going to get a by next year or more.
Going to be a network on the HMO.
I want to do refer. I'm sick of doing all these and I watch it because I personally can't afford PPO. So I'm 65 HMO. I talking to me like that.
That's the doctor. Once I always, if doctor that they love, I say stick.
That's the problem. I like to, but she's patients about referral. They're putting it on.
Unfortunately,
that's what I think.
So, I'm sorry.
Son's on disability. What happens when he reaches retirement age?
I want to mention some, if your son is in a facility in the future, that is one of the ways to really get to the top of that wait program. He has to have a minimum 60-day stay, and Medicaid needs to be applied for and approved. And then the first of the following is managed care over. Then the manager can assist transitioning him to living along with the component.
It's good to
To move him temporarily, not the long-term care part of the facility. Days and approval.
talk to Collier.
Andrea, are you a counselor or are you something?
I'm not considered a Shine. Things that I work for a company that's profit. Shine is non-profit. That do make us a little different. There's that will help individuals as well. Sign up for help for the plan where the relationship is be just done versus We work every single and sit down to make sure that we also help with bringing in claim.
And aid, and working for the company 20, and they had their insurance allowed me in the group plan premium retired in 2000. When I was working full time. Now they bumped 63 because it's but I noticed in New York, when now I'm in Florida, I noticed with the Aetna plan, a lot of doctors want to be in the Aetna and they're leaving it. Choices of, even though it's a PPO, is being restricted. Came to your and said, okay, could you tell me, because I know questions are coming up, no working. Tell me, you know, left the group, or are the options for you? Is that something you?
I've done that. The plan that they're currently is better. I can't use it retirement savings through it. It's a bulk of put in that helps pay for the leave it. But there's some different factors that comes to retirement that you always before you make. Is it really going to be the best to make the change? And if it is, then we look at the options.
She's not making both any of that for you to.
Correct.
Best for you.
Paperwork, it's usually comes I've received it. Bond. Cut it. It used to be December 1st that I had. Now that I have 2 weeks, I've got to know Thanksgiving. What am I staying with this plan? Am I from plan? Now, how do I have to make an appointment? I know I'm working time frame. So how to set up an appointment? October.
I'm going to be getting a notification in November for how the plan will change. Plans will be changing. Plans right now in 2020. But so October we can at least get an idea in the market then. Will be changing.
Whatever on the other side.
It is in the back. You're welcome.
What is it?
Okay. Normally, on in our building pay for the worst. We started 20 years ago. the drug. Look it up is going to Medicare. How much you're taking in every. Which plan? Right. And then everything for you. I'll do that for you. Like your supplements, be surprised. Until October. No more. It's buying your medication. It's a higher. You're welcome.
I have a little experience with it. For then come
They change every year. That's why it's always good to. Some could be leaving. So you don't want to be stuck in a plan that doesn't.
So do you have any insight?
Oh, just in States as opposed to Canada.
Actually, I couldn't. Sometimes that can be some type of drug coverage. Cost more than
And a vial. In a pen, and that's more. Which is. Canada has. Part of a bigger health.
Your medications for your pets.
Well, you're here. No, but I'm like it. Any other questions?
and I'm with AARP United Health.
we talk about. Well, you can have you're not no why have it be so.
Okay, well. Any,
Perfect.
Taking the time to sit down with her.
Ally. And that's just nursing facilities. You always have a choice. And if you choose one,
Christine Eisenhower. We're also happy to
Or spouses of veterans.
with you and, yeah.
You're telling me this.
What do you mean? Widow. Exceeding. There are assets. Yeah.
Of course, you
I
should
should
talk.
know.
Around. Have another SBB. This. It's going to be how to. Give us a call to RSVP, and again, the next.